another episode of Jay Leno's Garage. Today we're featuring a unique 1965 Corvette, which sadly does not belong to me, but belongs to a good friend of mine. You know, my favorite guests are comedians who are also car people. Jerry Seinfeld, Adam Carolla, Jeff Dunham. These are comics who make their living doing comedy, and they wisely put all their money into automobiles and motorcycles and cars. This gentleman follows that theory exactly. Joe Rogan. Joe, come on in. Good to see you, buddy.
Pleasure.
Now, Joe is well, you did Fear Factor for years, of course. Terrific stand-up comic, works clubs all across the country. But you're also a commentator for the UFC, right? Ultimate Fighting Championship?
Yes.
See, Joe is the guy you call when somebody's stealing your material, because most comics are basically cowards. We get into comedy because we don't know how to fight, so we make the bad guy laugh so he doesn't beat us up. Whereas Joe can actually kick your butt. Now, you were in New England, what? Karate? Jiu-jitsu?
Taekwondo champion.
Taekwondo champion, okay.
Tournaments back in the day.
See, and whenever somebody's stealing material at a comedy club, you send Joe down to talk to the guy. Joe talks to the guy and makes him see the error of his ways. But that's really good. So terrific. And you just got back from Brazil, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I was just there, just landed yesterday morning for the Ronda Rousey fight.
That was an incredible fight, wasn't it?
It was crazy.
Brazilians go nuts, don't they?
They go nuts, but she's so good, they cheered for her fighting a Brazilian, which I've never seen before. And when she won, usually when a Brazilian loses, they get bummed out. They were cheering for her. It was incredible.
That's great. Now, being an Ultimate Fighting guy and being a comedian, is it different dealing with hecklers? Do they know?
Well, their hecklers are always idiots. So
well,
even if they know, they're not wise humans.
I remember years ago, I was at the Improv and I was on stage, and I'm talking, and a bottle goes whizzing by my head, and I go, "All right, what coward threw that? I dare you to come up here." And this enormous guy, like 6'4", stands up, right? He comes walking towards the stage. He goes, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm ashamed of myself. I was drinking. I didn't mean to do that." I mean, he couldn't have been nice. I went, "All right, fine. Just sit down." And the crowd was like, "Whoa!" But I was like scared to death because he was enormous, and I thought, "Oh my God, this is like the stupidest thing ever." But he really felt ashamed. He felt bad that he had done this. And he came up to apologize, and he shook his hand. "All right, go back down and watch the rest of the show." All right, let's get on with the see, but that's...
I got a great story. At Stitch's Comedy Club in Boston, my good friend Greg Fitzsimmons
is
there.
I know Greg.
Greg got in a physical fight with a guy. A guy jumped on stage. There was some heckling going on, and Greg made fun of him, and the crowd was on Greg's side. Right. So the guy actually jumped on stage and got into a tussle with Greg. They're rolling around, and the bouncers come, grab the guy, remove the guy. Greg dusts himself off and goes, "Anybody else want some of this?" And then goes right back to his act.
See, that's it. That's what it is. You see, doing comedy is not an easy business. Now let's talk about your car.
Yes.
Could I follow some of the legendary cars you built. You had that Fish Barracuda deal.
Yes.
That was in all the magazines. That was pretty cool. You got your Porsche, the
Sharkworks car, yeah.
Yeah, but today we're talking about this. This is a 1965 Corvette Stingray, correct?
Yes, this is a beautiful car. This is one of my all-time favorite looking cars. I've always wanted a 65, and I ordered this car from RK Motors in Charlotte, and I had a guy go down and inspect it, and it was a really good car, very well made.
Was it a resto mod, as they say?
Yes, it's a resto mod. No, it wasn't stock at all. It's got an LS1 in it. Okay. Real nice suspension setup. If you look at it on a lift, a frame and everything, it's all beautiful and clean. But it had a burgundy interior. I thought that looked kind of gross, and it had Grand Sport wheels from a 2007 Corvette, which is the same year the engine came from. Yeah. It was just, and there's a few things that I just wanted to check on it. So I brought it to Steve Strope down at Pure Vision. Okay, and he's the guy who took care of my my Barracuda as well. The Barracuda had a bunch of problems.
Well, see, this is the thing. When you buy somebody else's project, not only do you get their taste, like that obvious guy loved the burgundy and he loved the other wheels, which you hate. So you can save money because you don't want to pay for that. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, resto mods, they cost more than restorations a lot of times, and they sell for a lot less because unless the guy next person has the exact same taste as you do, he's going to change everything.
Yeah. I mean, and also there's so much money in cars being stock. And I appreciate that, and I love your collection of stock cars, but I've always been a guy that I love the old looks, but I love the new underpinnings. I like modern brakes.
We've got a lot of retro mods here, too. The trouble is, you have a lot of times people do retro mods, and they have to go to somebody like Steve to repair it.
Yeah.
What was wrong with this? I mean, obviously it looked good, it ran okay, but what stalled, didn't handle? What was the problem?
The handling was great. There's a few issues there. The fuel tank was kind of funky. It was leaking. There was quite a few things. I'll actually let Steve explain all that.
Okay.
We'll bring him in. He'll give you the technical explanation of everything. He's my go-to guy. He's just a great guy, and he's so knowledgeable about cars. He built that famous, the Hammer. You've seen that car
Oh,
before.
sure, okay.
He's just built so many like really cool, high-end, beautiful muscle cars. And these are my all-time favorite kind of cars. I love American muscle cars.
Yeah, that was the one year. It was the 396, I think, wasn't it?
I think that was what it
yeah.
originally came with.
Yeah,
and it didn't come with that hood either. This is
And
a different hood, I believe.
This is my favorite body style. I never liked the later Mako Shark looking body style. You know, this is, to me, the first generation, you know, the C1, the C2, then the C3 Corvette. After that, I didn't like it as much. I think this is just iconic. Just a beautiful, beautiful car.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's one of my all-time favorite looking cars.
Now
It's
tell me
just
about
so
these
beautiful.
wheels. I have never seen a solid wheel like that on a Corvette. And I like it. It looks good. Where did the idea come for that?
Well, these are center lines, auto drags, and we had actually looked at some other center lines that they didn't make for this fitment because it's a really wide rear tire, and we decided, since they didn't make that, I saw these and I just said, wow, that would really look nice with it fits with the sort of the classic look of this car. It's just such a beautiful shape, and it complements it.
I'm glad you haven't modified the body, because the guys that designed this knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's been any modification, it's so subtle I can't see
Well,
it.
this is the modification. These
Okay.
These weren't
All right.
there
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
original car.
But that's tastefully done. That's really
Yeah.
nice. I always liked that in the old Thunderbirds. Remember the 62s had that?
Yeah. I'm a little, I go back and forth on those. I
Yeah.
like them, and then sometimes I go, maybe it would look better if it was smooth, but I don't know what I'm going to do about that. But overall, what he did with the car is just absolutely stunning.
Well, let's bring
Details
him
and
in,
everything.
introduce
Bring him
him.
in. Steve Strope, ladies and gentlemen.
Steve
come on
Strope,
in.
come on in, Steve. And Steve has combed his hair and put on a new.
I did.
Put on
I'm much better now.
a clean
I'm a
T-shirt.
whole man.
Wow, wow, there you go. Very cool. So how long have you had this business?
Started off the ground in about '98,
Okay.
which was cars were being built in my tandem underground parking garage at my apartment in Studio City. Do not tell my landlord.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So I was Pure Vision then, and had my first top 10 car of the year with Hot Rod, and built that in the underground parking garage.
Wow.
Wow.
And then the second top 10, about a year and a half after that, was built in a friend's driveway. He did a lot of the work, and I helped with all the design of it. So probably by about 2001, 2002, I actually moved into a building.
Right.
And then actually had a real building where my tools would actually sit. And that I wound up, my bed was next to the lift. I threw a piece of plastic over the bed to keep the metal shavings off my
That's
bed.
all you need. You
No.
just need the bed and a thing to keep
Yeah.
the metal shavings off the bed, and you're fine.
You join
I don't
24-hour
know why
fitness, so
wives
you got
can't
somewhere to
understand
shower, and you're good, man.
That's right. That's right. So let me ask you. So how did you hook up with Joe?
You called me.
Yeah.
No, through Bud.
Yeah,
Right?
my good friend Bud Brutzman.
Okay.
He had known Steve from the show Rides. Was it Rides?
Yeah, they
Okay.
featured the car. You were talking about Hammer. They had done an hour-long special on that car. So Bud had known me and recommended Joe bring a car down that needed some work, and
Yeah.
Bud knew me to trust
Let me
me.
ask you about that. So a guy like Joe brings your car. He goes, I bought this car. I love it. You look at it and you go, oh man, this is going to need. I mean, you see things
Yeah.
It needed a
Yeah.
lot.
that he and I don't see. How hard is it to break it to the customer that, listen, this is going to be.
There's
Yeah.
no breaking
Well,
it in. We both were aware of the issues.
Yeah.
This is how bad it was. When I pulled the car into my driveway, I just was going 70 miles an hour on the highway in the Barracuda. Pulled into my driveway, and the car just dipped to the left. I got out trying to figure out what happened, and the suspension had detached from the frame in my driveway 10 minutes after I was just on the
I
highway.
remember the phone call.
And I just go, okay. So I call Bud. Bud says, you got to go with Steve Strope. He's the man. So I call Steve. We have the car brought to him, and the work began.
And the work began.
So
So
that's the trouble with a lot of resto mod stuff. You know, they're not using grade 8 bolts.
30
Yeah.
30 to 35% of the workload in my shop is undoing and redoing not up to par work, or
Right.
workmanship or quality. This vehicle he had wish lists. There was some drivability issues, but there are other things that were personal. He wanted to fully change the interior color, change the interior. A lot of stuff was changed. The roof was changed to black. So there was stuff like that on the hit list, and there was serviceability and driver issues. So when we pulled the dash apart to do the color change and rewrap, we had found that the wiring was done by an 8-year-old.
Okay. Wow.
Which I sent him a photograph going, please observe the rat's nest underneath your gauge cluster.
Yeah.
So we redid that, and there's a steel brace that runs from side to side under the cowl of these cars from the factory.
Yeah.
This car is an LS motor with an ECU.
Yeah.
And granted, space is cramped under here, but you find appropriate places.
Right.
Whoever built this car did not, and they cut through the center of that brace just to put the ECU right through the middle of the brace.
Wow.
So got rid of the structure, so we re-welded that up. So that's a perfect example of you'd never even know, unless you took the dash apart, you'd never know that was done to this car. And unfortunately, we find a lot of that. So we have a growing number of people who are returned like Joe that purchase vehicles and they bring them right down immediately for safety
I mean,
checks.
that's the biggest problem. That's the problem a lot of times. You get people aren't really car people, and they've asked too much. Just make it look good. Just make it do this. And so consequently, I don't necessarily always blame the previous builder because that owner just wants it to look good and roll down the road so he can push it on to the next guy. So always be careful,
I would say I would agree with that up until the part about severing the brace to put the ECU.
Yeah, I call, on the builder's end, if it's a safety or structure issue, they should say, then I can't work on your car.
Right.
I can't let it go out of my shop in good conscience unsafe or improper. So there's responsibilities, as you know, on all ends. But to get back to your main thing we have a lot of cars that come in, they're modified vehicles, they're not 100-point restorations.
Right.
And we have to give them a very full sweep because people make it look good out here and you never know what's behind the green door. You gotta look, and usually you'll find unfortunate stuff because people, that's where they just rush or they go, and so we gotta seek that stuff out.
Well, let's take a look under the hood and see what we got here.
So basically, from everything we know, because we never broke open the motor, it's a stock LS1, but Joe wanted to add the supercharger. So it's a Magnuson kit for an LS1, but the fun is there's no Magnuson kit for an LS1 in a 65 Corvette.
Right.
So we had to make some brackets, we had to make some stuff for it to fit in the confines and here in this chassis, because the chassis is a tube chassis. So the chassis isn't a 65 Stingray, isn't a LS. So
the previous owner spent some money on this car, didn't he?
Yeah, this wasn't a cheap go around. It's got like he was saying, it's got a full chassis, IRS, IFS.
So it had good bones to start out.
Yeah, later model Corvette suspension, front and rear. So it's nice. It handles great, stops great, does everything it should for driving.
Now, what do you
down
have
the
for
road.
brakes? You have stock Corvette brakes?
Yeah, these appear to be the Corvette.
Okay.
The Corvette setup, which is good because instead of crazy aftermarket stuff, you can get rotors and pads and calipers easy, which is good for a street-driven car.
Yeah, it's the brakes from the 2007 GS.
Yeah, and you got your reliability with the stock Corvette motor. And what do you figure you're putting out? 4 1/4, something like that?
Yeah, probably around there.
Yeah,
The blower does add, for me, I mean, I drove it a little. He drove it more pre and post supercharger, but for me, the blower it has a nice tug on the street. It's not outlandish, but it's got a nice tug. It definitely adds that low end bottom to it.
Very nice. And you've got air conditioning?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a vintage air.
Oh, yeah, aren't they the best?
They are the best,
I
no question.
use vintage air on everything. Yeah, I always love this. I love the big glove box. This is just my favorite interior.
I like just hearing the engine and with the top down. It's a beautiful experience. The interior was kind of wonky.
Yeah.
It had those kind of cheap 2007 Corvette seats that when you hit the brakes, they move forward.
Oh, yeah.
You know those?
Yeah.
So Eric Thorson completely redid the interior and did just a beautiful job. We replaced the shifter and put that classic Hirsch shifter, which I love. I've always loved
and
that.
that looks like a longer throw. I mean, it looks like a taller shift.
Yeah, I love those. The big cue ball shifter. I've always been a huge fan of the muscle cars with the Hirsch shifter. And so Eric completely redid the interior to all black. Did a beautiful job with the door inserts. You can see there the seats. Trimmed the seats down to fit these humps. They were, the original seats was about here. Put some nice inserts.
It's beautifully done because the one complaint, especially the Europeans have about the Corvettes, is they always thought the interiors looked chintzy.
Yeah.
And considering a Corvette was like a third of the price of a fancy exotic, well, they had to save money somewhere. They put it all in powertrain and brakes and handling. And I didn't find the interiors that bad myself. So that's what I like about this. I mean, it's a real European, upscale-looking interior.
It's a pleasure to drive. It just feels great inside. The seats really hug you. And the Corvette really nailed it with the C7.
Yeah.
The 7 is just fantastic.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
it's a masterpiece.
It is.
It
but-
looks great. It drives great. But for the classic car, like this is, to me, the best compromise or the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's what I like, because, I've said this before on the website. People always say, well, the F1 McLaren didn't have anti-lock brakes. It didn't have this. Well, this doesn't have it either.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So
Not
we
many
replaced
power
the steering
assists.
wheel. The steering wheel was arguably the most disgusting steering wheel I'd ever seen on a car.
Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Was it some aftermarket
It
deal?
was just junk. It was
Yeah, yeah.
so gross. It was embarrassing to drive.
Yeah.
I like the drilled circles in it. I love that beautiful classic muscle car look.
Well, you've certainly done a heck of a job. Can we take it for a ride?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Boy, it goes great. You don't get to be a passenger in your own car very often.
No, it's fun. I love it.
Oh, I love hearing that supercharger.
Yeah, it's great. It almost sounds like a bike in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Years ago, I went for a drive in a Mercedes SSK. It was the Count Trossi car. It was a Pebble Beach car. And it's a big 7-liter engine with a it was a supercharger you could only engage for 8 seconds at a time. So you put your foot down, but it would let out a "Wah!" just the most blood-curdling scream. I mean, it wasn't that fast, really, but just the noise it made when the mechanical parts came together, it was a blood-curdling shriek. It was fantastic.
I've watched so many of your videos, man.
Oh, thanks.
So many of them. I really enjoy your show. It's one of the best car shows on the net.
Thanks.
It's just your passion for these automobiles just really comes through.
Yeah, we try to, I hate these shows. Everybody throws tools at one another and, they have phony fights.
Yeah.
You better have this done by Monday. Why I oughta, and
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just you share this love that a lot of us have for these cars.
Oh, yeah, it's just wonderful. Because, growing up where we did in Massachusetts, you didn't see cool cars. I mean, it's the kind of thing where you'd hang around McDonald's till like 11 o'clock at night on a Friday. You'd go home, 11:30, your phone would ring. Jay, it's Bob, a Corvette went through. Ah, I missed it, I left it. I mean, you waited for cool cars to come through, but nothing ever did.
When I was a kid, my sister's boyfriend's brother had a 65 GTO, and I used to work at a gas station.
Yeah.
And we used to all sit there and wait for him to drive by.
Yeah. It's so stupid, isn't it?
He had a license plate that said Chirps. Because he would chirp the tires when he shifted the gears. And he was the hero of the town.
Yeah. It's so funny. You don't really see that here in LA because it's a big town. When you come from a small town like we did, there was always like one guy that had the cool car.
Yep.
And it was always like a Chevy with a 283 with 2 4-barrels.
Right.
And it really wasn't anything that special. But nobody else had anything better. You know? It's
exactly.
My friend's dad, I remember when we were 13, bought a 63 or 64 Impala SS, 283 with a 2-speed power glide, but it was a 2-door. And that might as well have been a Ferrari. He was like the coolest dad because they had a 2-door. Wow.
Yeah.
See, this car's a perfect combination of cruising, but enough handling to have fun in the hills. Come on, let's take it up in the hills a little bit. We'll show you what she does.
All right.
This is just a classic look Corvette.
Yeah. It's my favorite look out of all the classic Corvettes.
Yeah.
And I really love it, especially in convertible form. I think it's the best looking convertible classic car.
Yeah, and they only built it for what, 4 years? 63 to 67, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. But they really nailed it with that new one, though. I'm really thinking about picking up a new one.
It's really nice. That Z06 is unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's also I feel like I want to reward them for doing what everybody wanted. I mean, they nailed every aspect of it: the interior, the exterior, the handling.
You know, the great thing about GM is since the restructure, they got engineers running the company, not marketing guys.
Right.
Like in the old days, like when you look at a 63 Corvette, it appears to have vents on the hood, but they're fake vents. But they were supposed to be real vents because Duntov, the engineer, noticed at high speed the front of the Corvette would lift up. So he put those vents there to come through, so when you raced them. But then, you know, the factory said, it's going to cost X amount of dollars to put holes in the vent. Just forget about it. You know, and that's the way they used to do things. It was all marketing. The Chrysler Hemi was $5 an engine more to build than the Chrysler 440. So they stopped making the Hemi.
Wow.
To save $5. You know, but when you're looking at 100,000 cars a year, it's a lot of money.
Right.
But again, it's not an engineer's decision, you know. Now, I mean, that new Z06 is so good.
Yeah. So good.
You know, you drive that and you realize you could never make this car do what that does. Because
Right.
it's just a totally clean sheet of paper.
Right.
You know, so that's why something like this, I think you've done all the right modifications to it. You just drive it, enjoy it, put it in sixth gear. I mean, this is what it does best,
Yeah.
you know? And then you want to blow off a Porsche or something, you downshift, you nail it. You know,
Right.
You're not going to be power sliding through turns with this thing.
Right. If you are, you're kind of an asshole.
Well, yeah. That's not to say you won't do it occasionally.
Occasionally, it's fun. It will break loose, but it's easy to handle when it does.
Yeah.
It's really well balanced. Even though it's kind of a little bit front end heavy, even more so now that it has the blower, it's pretty well balanced. And
But it's still lighter than the 396 that came with it.
yes.
Was this your first Corvette?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
my first Corvette.
So all these years, this is your first Corvette?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was a Barracuda fan, but that one car kind of steered me away from them. I always loved those. And I've always been a Chevelle fan, so that's my next one.
What year Chevelle?
I like the 69.
Yeah.
I like the 70, but I like the 69
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a little bit more. I like the grille a little bit more. And so Strope is going to do a resto mod, full independent suspension,
Yeah.
the whole deal. We're just going to go hog wild on it. For a cruising car, I mean, it's a car I love to take to the Comedy Store, and just it
Yeah.
makes me feel good when I get there. You know, I'm driving it around. It's a pleasure.
No, I like the way this handles. I don't think it's particularly floaty. I don't know. I think it's really nice.
It's definitely better than when it was before you put the regulator on the steering.
Yeah, yeah.
Cut back the pressure.
I think if this is all you drove, you would never notice it. Now, when you commentate on these UFC fights, are you ever comedian in those situations, or is it just straight commentary? Do you have fun
Almost
with it?
always straight.
Yeah, yeah.
But every now and then, like one time, these guys they had an ice bag on this guy's back, and the round ended, and the ice bag broke and spilled. And they started kind of half-ass cleaning it up, and they started leaving while there was still ice. So they brought him back in. I'm like, get back in there! And I'm starting yelling at them. Then it became stand-up.
Right,
And it became kind of a famous moment to the point where there's even a Twitter account, Spilled Bag of Ice.
Oh, that's
where
funny.
they'll recount it, and
Yeah.
there's videos of it that people play over and over again. So in that situation, it was like just dead air,
Yeah.
and my comedic instincts just took over.
Yeah, that's funny.
But when the fight's going on, it's very important for me to represent these guys that have spent so much time to train and to prepare themselves, and it's such an enormous moment for them.
Yeah.
To me, it's an honor to be able to represent their accomplishments, their sport, their art. So I take it very seriously.
Did you ever do straight boxing or always martial arts?
I did kickboxing.
Okay.
I mean, I boxed in the gym. I did some straight boxing in
Yeah.
the gym, but not in competition.
Yeah.
Oh, the
My
toughest.
all-time favorite movie. You ever see Requiem for a Heavyweight
Yes,
with
I did.
Anthony Quinn?
Yes, I did.
Amazing!
It's a great movie.
Just a heartbreaking scene where he goes to where he's number 5 in the
Yep.
world and nobody knows who he is. Oh! One of the greatest movies ever.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
With a young Cassius Clay at the
Yep.
beginning.
Yep.
And he is Cassius Clay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been so many great old school boxing movies. On the Waterfront.
Yeah.
I mean, people still say that. I could have been a contender.
Yeah.
I could have been somebody.
Yeah. He used to call me occasionally, Marlon Brando.
Really?
Honest. One day he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, Jake, I want to ask you a question. I got a friend. He needs some help." I said, "Yeah. You know about boats, right? Boats? No, I don't really know about. What? You like cars, right? Yeah. So cars and boats." So I said, "Well, no. I mean, it's different." He goes, "But you can't have cars without boats." And I said, "Well, I mean, sure you can." And we have this, and I can't figure out what the heck he's saying. I said, "Marlon, what does he want me to do? My friend invented this new kind of boat, and I want to bring it over and show it to you." Is he bringing it on a trailer? A trailer? Why a trailer? I said, "Marlon, what are you talking about? You know boats, right?" I said, "Yeah." "Nuts and bolts." "Oh, nuts and bolts."
Oh.
Are you saying B-O-L-T? You go, "Yeah, that's what I said, boat." But it sounds. And we had this stupid conversation on the phone. You know, I'm trying to be. It's Marlon Brando.
Right, of course. That's
So I
hilarious.
said, "Yeah, have your friend bring his new kind of bolt over to me, and I'll take. You know, he just wanted some connection."
You know boats.
But with that accent, you know boats, right? Jay, you know boats? Yeah, sure.
That's hilarious.
I feel like we're on Route 66.
Yeah. Well, I always liked fiddling with them. I always liked tinkering and just getting them perfect.
Yeah, but this is a car you spar with. You don't fight with.
Right.
Is that a good analogy?
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, you have fun with it. You enjoy it. People love it. Even today, you drive this Corvette on the freeway, a minivan goes by full of kids, and the kids know nothing about cars, but they know there's something special about this because it looks cool.
Right.
Why doesn't it doesn't look like any other car on the road? You're impressed by it. It looks good. Because you know you make yourself crazy trying to get it to
Yeah.
push it to that 100th percentile.
Right.
You know, this handles really nicely.
For a 65 Corvette, for sure.
I think it's a second gear turn. Okay. Feel it slide there.
Smell a little rubber.
Okay, we're teenage girls now. We're Instagramming. This is how accidents happen. You're in a high-speed car on a windy road, and we're taking selfies. Okay, it doesn't get any stupider than this. Okay, first of all, Joe Rogan is wrong. This car doesn't need anything else. You know, see, we're having this discussion. When you have a car like this, then you switch to your modern Porsche or something else, you keep thinking, oh, I got to do all these little things to make it handle better. But it really handles really nice. I mean, it's a nice driving car. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. Really comfortable on the highway. Handles nice use of the curves. Obviously, when you push it hard, you can feel some of the... But to spend a ton of money to make it do that, I think you lose it on the other end. So I think this car is perfect.
Well, I'm going to listen to Jay Leno. The
There you
car's
go.
perfect.
The car is perfect. But we haven't kind of cruised on the freeway. We'll do one little cruise, and then we'll pull back to the garage and do our summation.
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 Woo!
Feels good.
The sound.
Then you drop it in 6th gear, and it's perfectly quiet.
Yeah, like right now it's fine. That is what's nice about these these cars in a 6-speed.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of fun. I want to thank Joe Rogan and Pure Vision as well for doing a great job on this car. You
Yeah,
did
Steve
terrific.
Strope is a
Yeah.
real mastermind. He did
Yeah.
a fantastic job.
Yeah, but as I said, don't change a thing. It's perfect.
I won't. And I want to thank you. It's an honor to be on your show. I really
Joe, thanks a
appreciate it.
lot. If
I'm a
Joe's
big
in your
fan
town,
of the
go
show.
check him out. Very funny guy, serious car guy, but a funny guy as well. So, see you guys next week. Bye bye.
Mm-hmm.